Those of you that are leaving are going to miss an incredible opportunity to hear a wonderful story. So hang in there. I know it's really difficult being the last session of the day to keep your attention span where it is, but we've got an amazing journey and an amazing story to share with you today, because you're in the Javits Center, but you may not know a whole lot about what the Javits Center is from its 1986 origination date. So I'm Bill Sisson. I am the Executive Director of WBCSD North America here in New York. We're part of a global organization of companies that are really driving forward the transformations needed for a sustainable future. But let me let each of my colleagues present themselves. Be interesting to not just give us your title, but what do you do? So let me first start with Denise.
Denise Lee, it's great to be here. I'm Vice President at Cisco, responsible for our Engineering Sustainability Office. What that means is looking at our entire architecture, our portfolio, and the roadmaps to help bring you new innovation and new technology.
Fantastic. Yashi.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yashi Dadij. I'm the Director of Energy and Sustainability at Javits Center. I am working with the amazing team at Javits and with our wonderful partners such as Cisco to create more sustainable events for our future.
Thank you. Tim Gabarunji. I'm responsible for guest and admin-facing technology. The reason your Wi-Fi is working right now is thanks to my team and collaboration with our partners.
I'll give Tim a hand. You know, if you've spent any time here this afternoon, you've probably heard a bit more about the built environment in the context of the challenge that all members of this sector are trying to strive for as we think about decarbonizing a very complex, challenging sector. Not to mention a facility like this, the Javits Center, is 1.2 million square feet. And I did a little football calculation math since we're in football season. That's about, let me see if I get this right, 26 football fields, I believe, something on that order. So it's quite a large, complex facility. I think we've got 3,000 solar panels outside.
Yes, we do.
Miles and miles of infrastructure that I'm sure Tim will love to talk to you about. And so this is a really way to think about how complex this system of systems is, to think through how do you get something like this to net zero. So we'll explore that a bit further, but I think a bit of the history is also worthwhile sharing with you all. As I mentioned, and Tim highlighted this to me earlier, this facility was built in 1986, but we actually have a hurricane to thank. Ironic that I would say something like that, correct? We have a hurricane to thank that really caused the mindset shift to think more carefully about what this facility needed to be. And so I want to unpack that story with the Javits team first. So tell us a little bit more about the implication of the hurricane and how that changed a little bit, or a lot, I should say, your thinking of what you needed to do to this amazing facility. So Tim, let me start with you. Yep,
so Hurricane Sandy, you'll remember, brought the Hudson right into the Javits. Right now it looks nice and beautiful. Hurricane Sandy, we had the whole of level 1 flooded with water. From a technology perspective, all our cabling is in the floor, so all of that. We discovered copper and salt water don't quite work together. So we were out, and we had to fix it in order to operate to host all our events. So getting the physical infrastructure in was one step, but then also what rides that infrastructure was critical. That's when we developed the partnership with Cisco. And at that time, we decided to go out and implement technologies which could address our issue at that point after Hurricane Sandy, but also future-proof us so that we could, one, support our events and also be able to accommodate technologies as they evolved.
And Yashi, I think the thought process that led you to think about, from there we're building an infrastructure, but more importantly now, how do we utilize and leverage that to actually get to a place that's going to be important for our future, which is net zero. So help us sort of build the rest of that story as to where you're headed.
Thank you so much, first off, for giving us the opportunity to share our amazing journey from 1986 to 2023 today. I'm very excited to share that when we started, we did not have any of these foundations in place. We did not have a plan at that point. But when Hurricane Sandy hit us, at that point we started kind of looking at, okay, we got to do it. And the way we want to do it is we want to secure ourselves from future threats. And that threat was not just one. At that time, we realized that it is multiple different threats that we are facing. And that's how we started thinking about that. If we are addressing this one issue of not just fixing our building and kind of future-proofing it for future weather events such as that, but we also want to make sure that we are securing our future for our future generations. And that's when our wonderful CEO, he put the vision in place where we started looking at everything tiny bit, each step at a time that we took. We were always thinking about our future and leading to the net zero point. We are not there yet, but we have a very strong foundation because we have our amazing partners such as Cisco in place, which have helped us in getting to that point. And that being said, what Tim was mentioning, at that point we had 3 data centers, and we kind of got, when Sandy hit us, there was a lot of damage. We were very soon to realize that this is not going to help us. But then from that point on, whatever we worked on, we made sure that we are thinking about the future. We are thinking about reducing the space we are occupying for it. We were thinking about the electronics that we are putting in place, all the equipment that we were putting in place. And everything was kept in place, thinking about how we can reduce our waste, how we can use it for our future to reduce our energy use, and then ultimately reducing our carbon emissions and reducing our carbon footprint. Not from just that day, but till today, we have been in a journey which is of continuous improvement. And I'm sure you've had a chance to look at our wonderful 6.75 acres of green roof and 1 acre of farm. And I'm sure you've had a chance, I really hope you did have a chance to have some of our wonderful fresh produce at the Garden Eatery from our amazing partners cultivated.
So Denise, this sounds like a moving vision, right? We wanted to build out the infrastructure, and that was enabled because of this event, right?
Yeah.
You told me the first floor was entirely underwater.
Wonderful.
Just imagine that, you've walked through this building. But Denise, when Cisco got involved, it wasn't just Cisco as a supplier, right?
No.
Why don't we talk a little bit about that and sort of the importance of that in getting to where they are trying to get to?
Absolutely. Yashi mentioned the CEO of Javits Center, Alan Steele, who's had this vision for a long time. And if anyone remembers John Chambers, was Cisco's predecessor CDO before, currently Chuck Robbins. There was an aligned vision and there was an aligned value set that all these years later continues to pay its way forward through its people and its culture, its purpose statements and mission. And I think that's one of the responses that has kind of kept the partnership evolving over time, underpinned by new innovation and technology. So as Javits Center is looking at whether it's energy efficiency or it's looking at battery storage and capacity for how long Javits Center can go offline, if in fact it needed to become a refuge and a shelter. I think Javits Center can go offline for, 5 days?
6 days.
6
actually
days?
At its full capacity. And on our average capacity, we could actually go up to a month.
Wow.
And then the number of people that can be housed here in the event of a climate disaster or some other kind of emergency response, it's thousands, thousands and thousands of people that would be housed here under that time. So when I think about Cisco at its core, this kind of power and inclusive future for all, using technology at its core to keep everyone connected, whether it's for events like Comic-Con or the automotive show or even events like this, how many people are traveling around right now to different conferences around the world? And I don't know about you, but I often get asked, how do you justify being here? How do you justify the travel and all the things that you're doing? And one of the visions that I know Alan has that we're hoping to partner with is how do you get an event to net zero? How can you go to an event guilt-free knowing that where you're sitting is being completely powered by renewable energy, that the food you're eating has been sourced by the roof on top, that the cooling that's going through the building is being generated by solar right on the building. So there's all sorts of things that we can do together that opens up wide open new use cases because the technology and the built environment are converging, right? The IT and the OT space continue to converge, and there's more and more use cases as we think about sensors and cameras and open roaming and Wi-Fi access. It's sort of, you know, an unlimited use case plate you can add to these conferences and these experiences.
So let me do a random audience poll. So how many in the room, just show of hands, would actually value knowing or being in a facility that can claim it's net zero for an event? I think that's amazing.
That's amazing.
That's
So,
amazing.
You know, you're onto something here. Yashi, you're onto something, Tim. You're doing something here that's important to folks that are going to come to future events here. Yashi, help me though. We're not there yet.
We're not there yet,
So let's
but we
unpack
are
that a
working
little bit.
towards it.
Yeah.
Javits Center is a proud signatory of the Net Zero Carbon Events Pledge, and we are committed to reduce our carbon emissions by 50% by 2030 and get to net zero actually by 2050. And we are working very hard with our wonderful partners, and it takes a village, believe it or not, and Javits in itself is a village. We are working with our partners, and it's so important to kind of make sure that we have all the stakeholders involved in it. Our partners are very important to us. So are you, and so are our internal stakeholders, our own team members. It is so important to make sure that we are educating and holding each other's hands so nobody feels left alone and nobody feels the burden is on that one person or one department or one company or one partner. It is the cross-collaboration between industries, between departments, and between different partners, such as Cisco.
There's also a transparency part to it. And I know that's something that you guys are working on. It's something that our customers come to us all the time asking for accurate data and energy management. And how do we share transparently what the baseline looks like and then how you're going to go after that baseline. So I know that's something that we're continuing to work on and something that you want to be able to offer to all of the attendees of your events as well as all of your partners.
Absolutely. So actually we are currently working on, so any event which we are hosting here, we have almost like a metadata in IT terms, where we are creating a full sustainability matrix, starting from the energy consumption to the water consumption and to the waste reduction as well. And if any event comes to us requesting that sustainability matrix, we are able to share that with them as well.
Tim, I'm going to be really mean to you and go off script.
Go on.
It just dawned on me. You have a tremendous business opportunity here. You had the whole room raise their hands saying if it's net zero.
Yes.
What if it's positive?
I beg your
What
pardon?
if it's positive? You've got carbon credits in the room.
Yes.
What do you think about that? Do you think you're on a journey to actually
Yes.
take the facility to that place?
Yes, and we are very proud about what we've managed to achieve. And remember, the green roof is on the top, and the farm is on level 4. Employees can come in and out and never actually see it. Thanks to Yashi and the team, we do make sure that we involve the employees. So it's part of our culture, right? Not only making the trips, we get some of the produce, goes down to the food that they eat, or that we eat in the, So the employees are involved in the story and in the journey. And it also, the culture goes into strategy. We challenge all our partners, like as technology evolves, because frequently I get my fellow department heads coming and having gone out and met some shiny new technology that they would like us to import. And I challenge everyone and say, hey, what will that add to our footprint? Is there a way for us to use the existing footprint? Or are we replacing something else and putting in something that is smaller than what we're going to take out? So it's also the strategy that we have. And we build the message with the team, with the IT team. We say, hey, it's going to be smaller. It's going to be virtual. It's going to be in the cloud. It's going to be on a common platform. And everyone in the team knows this. So when we speak to our colleagues, our department heads, and our other partners, the vendors, everyone understands what Javits' story is.
Tim, sorry, really quickly. I remember on a tour you took me on, you and Alan took me on, because of the storage you have and so much solar that you do have,
Yeah.
if I think about the public and private sector often needing to work together, especially in times of crises, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can actually offload if, for example, energy prices get too high, you
Yes.
can actually help the local community. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. We do have demand response.
Yep.
What happens is like during summer when there's very high demand on the grid, all the way to Times Square, and down here we happen to be on the same grid, we'll get NYPA calling in and asking us, hey, can you guys get off the grid?
Right.
So thanks to our installed capacity, we can take the building off the grid and support the rest of the community.
I want to get kind of back to that, because, thank you, please, please. I want to get back to that, Tim, because when we were talking earlier, pre-Sandy,
Yes.
you had a very, I call it 1986 design system. No offense to those that were designing systems in those days, but they were singular wires representing each technology in the building, if you want to think of it that way.
Yes.
You've completely changed that with Cisco's assistance to a very adaptable future. And talk a little bit more about future-proofing, and Denise, I'd like you to lay on that, because there's technologies, AI, new things advancing every day that I'm anticipating you're going to want to bring into the infrastructure here.
Exactly,
Say more.
and that's what we did, yes. So when we partnered with Cisco back in 2014, the strategy was to implement technology which future-proofs us and allows us to take on technology as it emerges. And that has worked really well for us and future-proofs us. So looking ahead, our journey is still, it's not complete. Like they keep saying, excellence has no finishing line. So we're still looking forward. Partnering again with Cisco and others, we're looking at technologies which, for instance, will allow us, using what we have installed in here, to tell us how many people are in here. Again, not a big brother thing, but more to be able to regulate, let's say, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning on the fly, based on how many people are here, instead of just pumping air into the room or out of the room. Then, for example, this building, the large portion of it is really truck marshalling. So we take over 200 trucks off the streets of New York, and they're parked in here instead of them running idle. But truck marshalling is a process whereby you need trucks coming in and out. Working with Cisco, we've got intelligent camera systems with analytics at the edge. So they're able to help us and the teams to operate the trucks, the marshalling. So, I mean, that's again, there are more opportunities evolving, and I keep discussing with Cisco every day, and hey, what can we do to make this building even more efficient?
There's a lot of talk across Climate Week about the built environment, and what Cisco's working on in our sustainable solutions is how do we get smart buildings in campuses, and how do we look at the data center and all of the new capacity that's going to be needed for AI. So it's a long journey, right? It's a long journey. There's continuous innovation that's coming out, but what we're working on, because Cisco has, number one, number two supply chain in the world, is we can take back any of this product, 100% responsibly recycle and reuse it, and then make sure the Javits Center has the latest and greatest. So we're working on those business models all the way down to the hardware, in addition to the software, to make sure things are always ready. It doesn't necessarily need to be always on, and different variations of turning things in hibernation mode or standby mode. Particularly if you think about spaces like this, if they're not being used, building management systems often can be in the dozens when you look at an overall building complex, right? Who wants to manage 30+ building management systems just to get your AC or your lights to turn on or off? But if you get that all connected to the backbone of the network and with our Catalyst 9K series and other things, it allows you to just continue to evolve and get more policy management and, over time, automation. And that automation and that intelligence is what allows it to be easier, and then you get more energy savings.
I love the idea of that circular model that Denise just referenced. I was not aware of that until just now, but that's really amazing when you think about all of the pieces of sustainability you've now built into Javits, including circularity. And so now you've got another reason to be here. They're not only net zero, but they're getting probably something close to net zero waste, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So we are working towards reducing our waste, and that being said, like a lot of the events that we host, they leave a lot of stuff behind. So we have an amazing donation program in place, which is called Javits Cares. So anything that is left behind after any event, nothing goes into the trash. We have a rule: if you can put it in your living room, it finds a new home in the city itself. Other than that, we have currently 11 different streams of waste that we are managing. We have 2 cardboard balers, which kind of take all the cardboards and kind of crush it into like a small cube. So it reduces the space that it is taking. We are also working with the plastics, the soft plastics, which is one of the most difficult ones to recycle. We have an amazing partner, and we are able to collect that, and we are creating bales out of that also to recycle that as well. So we're working on multiple of those things, and you might have already noticed, even in this show, we have centralized waste stations where we are making sure that we are putting things where they're supposed to, so we reduce the waste from this event as well.
So, Tim, Denise, let's not talk about electrons, bytes, bits, gigabytes. Let's talk about what really made this work, right? This system is working for a number of reasons that go beyond the technology.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about why this is working?
So number one is, in my mind, is commitment.
That was to wake him up, by the way.
Well, yeah, exactly. So in my mind, definitely, there's no doubt about it, is commitment from leadership. In the discussions I listened to this afternoon and this morning in here, I had someone say boiler room to board. We have that here in the Javits. Like I told you, we discussed behind, you don't get the toys, we have the technology toys, unless your CEO and your board have signed on, right? And that's what has enabled. That's number one for me. Then the other thing, obviously, is because in this whole sustainability effort, it's very important for us to be credible and authentic, and therefore it requires us to be able to show measurable achievements. What we've been able to do with Cisco is definitely measurable. You talked of this, millions of cables shrinking to 1, the data centers from 3 to 1, the amount of equipment in the data center from tons to a few pieces, putting all the technology somewhere else so that it consumes far less power. These things are all measurable. Even the demand response, measurable. So this gives us credibility in this story when we are trying to convince more people to join us on this sustainability journey.
And Denise, and the other side of that leadership commitment, there's also a relationship, the collaborative relationship
Absolutely.
that you're having here. I don't know how frequently the Cisco team is being nice to Tim, but
The leadership teams across both Cisco and Javits, I think, could not be more aligned from the overall mission and purpose. One of the things that resonated so quickly when I first met Alan was the scale and impact, right? Both that Cisco has, we work and power 122 governments around the world. Javits Center welcomes people from around the world every week, right? So the scale and impact to be able to have an aligned leadership goal and purpose at its core and be able to do that in a credible way that's measurable, I think it just goes hand in hand. We can showcase our technology here. They also know that it's technology. They're okay. One of the things we've loved is piloting and testing certain things, and if it doesn't work, they know they can count on Cisco to come in and just make sure there's extra assurance along the way. So that future proof, that making sure we, the latest and greatest and what those shiny objects are, it's important in this journey to net zero because we need speed and scale. And with Cisco and Javits, we can get both. And I think that's part of, regardless of the leadership changes, the culture of both organizations kind of perseveres.
Yeah, collaboration, a collaborative culture, if you will, has been established here. And it sounds very innovative, it sounds very entrepreneurial, the environment, but yet the scale of this facility, you wouldn't think that would be tolerated, right? So that's an amazing point, and probably really critical for how we're gonna have to think differently and out of the box and change our mindsets around how we do things going forward in the future, not just here, but in other facilities like this and in other buildings like this around the world. So, Yashi, we just talked a lot about the importance of data. And I'm guessing that's a bit music to your ears, given your role,
Yes.
because you're going to rely on that information, that data, to be credible, to be valid, to be presentable in what you're going to be disclosing on your journey to net zero. So a little bit more on that, please.
So a little bit more on that is we are in the process of calculating our scope 1 emissions, because everything that we're talking about sustainability, it ties down to the carbon emissions, and that's what we're talking about. How do we get to net zero? And as I mentioned previously, we have started our journey, and our journey, it's towards net zero. It's a long journey. But we have started our scope 1 calculations, and we are working towards our scope 2, and we are in the process of identifying which scope 3 categories are relevant to us. So we can identify in our supply chain as well and work with our partners and vendors to reduce those emissions too.
So Cisco's been reporting on environmental for over 15 years, and we can help with some of that, right, through the telemetry of our products.
Yes.
Our scope 3 becomes your scope 2.
Yes.
And I think that's another benefit to having partners in your ecosystem that are credible and you can
Absolutely.
count on, because we have been doing this for so long. So it is a long journey. We are happy to compare
And
notes.
we look forward.
And we're building a lot into just the sheer telemetry of our products.
But
Absolutely.
let's be fair, it's not that long a journey.
No,
Is it?
it's not. I think if you talk to me in less than 6 months, I will have a lot of those numbers, a lot of those datas. We will be using science-based targets to set our goals, and in less than 6 months, we will have a
Right.
climate action plan as well.
Because it's not like in
No,
27 years.
absolutely not.
Did the math right there. Did I do the math right? I think so. That you're going to pop up and say we're net zero. You're going to have to show progress and commitment and progress
Exactly.
along the way.
And actually, to add on to that, as many of you might have already noticed, on our 6.75 green roof, you might have noticed we have the solar panels, but we also have one wind turbine. So we are testing out a pilot for running the wind energy and to kind of see if that will help us in reducing our energy emissions as well. So we, those tiny, tiny projects that we have been doing, some of them are at smaller scale, some of them are like at full scale, like the demand response program that we have been participating in for quite some time now. So all those will combine and help us get to that net zero. And more importantly is our partners, the amazing partners that we have in place. That collaboration and that cross-industry collaboration is very important to help us to get to net zero, not just us, not just the partnership, but all of us as a society to get to that net zero, because that's what we need for our future generations.
And Denise, it sounds like you have maybe a product to help them figure out how to do this more efficiently?
Cisco has a lot of products. One of the neat things about Cisco is we have an end-to-end architecture, whether you're talking about the campus and the built environment or data centers, or even the service providers and the actual internet that we all consume from our service providers at home. What I think is interesting about Cisco is we are looking at how do we network in the same way we've been networking data for 30, 40 years. How do we network energy? How can we be more and more intelligent about getting energy to the places where they need to when you need it? And again, put more and more automation on that. So I want you to think about that concept of energy networking and the fact that power over Ethernet has been around for over 25 years.
Amazing.
But it's taken this long, and it's taken a global crisis to have lighting manufacturers and blind manufacturers and furniture manufacturers now come up with PoE-enabled devices so that we can turn buildings like this into more and more DC microgrids, right, off the grid, and then network that energy just the same way we do data on the same cable.
Yeah.
And there's more innovation that's coming kind of in that vein. So we need to look at all of these different systems. Historically, you would have power, and you would have cooling, and you would have networking all separate. But if you think about these subsystems coming together and being planful at the start, now you're looking at an entire ecosystem that is interconnected and interdependent. And unlocking that, I think, is where we're going to see a lot more of the acceleration to net zero.
Great. So maybe one or two words from each of you in the last 30 seconds we have. Amazing. It's gone by very quickly, huh?
I have a non-IT fact. We spotted the 54th bird on our green roof. a ruby-throated hummingbird. FYI.
Yashi.
So for me, collaboration and culture for us is the key to move to net zero.
Fantastic. Denise.
I want you to think beyond the walls of a building. I want you to look at what we've talked to you about this story today and take it into a university, an airport, a campus, a new neighborhood that's coming up, and apply all of these same principles to anywhere you travel to next.
In my words, thank you for coming, for staying with us. I hope you go out in that corridor and think a little bit differently about the facility you're now sitting in. So thank you very much. Thank the panelists.
Thank you.
Tim, Yashi, Denise.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.